It's like literally past midnight there. Anyways, hello all and welcome to Olga's show, the show where you can level up with us. The awesome guests at my show who are just like Diana Grant, coming with a great energy, amazing wisdom, and lots of value. Diana Grant, she's a speaker, she's a coach, and she's an amazing human being, and also she's my friend. Diana, I'm so happy to have you back at our monthly show on self love. What do we have today?
Oh, Olga. Thank you for that wonderful intro. Yes, and it's so good to be here. I love our shows together. And
Mhm.
as usual, we have come up with a really fun topic. Yes, that can keep us on our toes and stopping the cycle of self-sabotage. And wow, that's quite a big one. It's a biggie.
It is a big one because very often you don't even notice that. It
Mm-hmm.
is hiding. It's camouflaged. It's hidden away so well, even from yourself,
Yes,
and you don't even know where to start. But you
yes,
see that there is a repetitive pattern of you going up and down, maybe financially, maybe in your health. You lose weight and you gain weight. Maybe
yeah.
at your work, you get great work and then some things happen and you lose that job.
Mm,
Could be so many ways of you self-sabotaging yourself. But Diana, how can
absolutely.
we actually stop it?
Well, you know my answer to everything, Olga.
Of course.
The theme of our chat once a month, self-love. And why I'm here is to unpack that self-love. What does it
Yes.
actually mean in this scenario? As we started this chat and you mentioned it, I could just picture so many people going, "Well, I don't really do that," because I remember with myself so often. It's like, no, I don't do that. I don't do that, and it's natural. It's a way of sort of defending our own honor to ourselves. However, the key factor here with self-sabotage, if you look at any pattern in your life, anything that, as you mentioned, goes up and down, goes up and down, the key is to get real. And that can be such a challenge to be brutally honest with ourselves about what's really going on. But I'd like to take that word brutal away and say lovingly honest with ourselves. And so the first step is be your best friend. Be your own best friend. Like I might say to you if I see something, or you might say to me, Olga, you know what, Diana, I see that this is happening with you, and it looks like it's happened three, 4 times before. What do you think is going on? What is it about? Just like that, just like you would ask your friend if you saw them doing something over and over again that wasn't working for them. We all can see it in each other so much easier than we can see it in ourselves. So I think the first step is just lovingly getting honest with ourselves. And a key way of doing that is asking questions. Like, what is working for me? What isn't working for me? You used a few examples, can be money, work, relationships. So you might see yourself, I've gone in and out of relationships several times. It always seems to happen the same way. It's great in the beginning, and then this starts creeping in, or that starts creeping in, and then it gets tumultuous, and then it ends, and you might feel sad for yourself, like I get left. Why do I get left? Why don't I have this long-term love that other people have? That's the time to start asking yourself some questions. Because, and this is a tough one, in any scenario that's not working in my life, I am the common denominator. So if I have a history of financial troubles, I'm the one thing that's the same in that story. If I have a history of job, disorder and disarray, where I have a great job and then it falls apart, I am the common denominator. The same for relationships, the same for any kind of pattern. So I have to come back and sit with myself and talk with myself. The key factor here is always, as I said, love. So be gentle, be your own best friend, and ask those questions. And the answers will be tough. I've done this before, and I'll do it again. I always have my handy journal next to me, and I know you do too, Olga. Everywhere we go,
Absolutely.
because that self-reflection process is so powerful. There we go. It's just so powerful, as you know. Asking the questions, the answers don't always come straight away because obviously there's going to be resistance. Um, but it's about maintaining that level of curiosity. I want to know me better. I want better for myself. If I want to heal this part of my life, the parts that do seem to be sabotaged, and so often we sabotage is a word that's fine on its own. Put self in front of it, and it's like no, 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 as you said. But so, what area looks like it's being sabotaged? Am I really a victim, or am I part of the problem? And the exciting thing about that is, if we're part of the problem, we get to be part of the solution. We get to take the power back and look at what can be changed. And that I think is so inviting. Yeah. So
It's really powerful what you're saying there. And in addition to what you said there, Magda, she's asking a question with this little statement before that as well. She says self sabotage can have many forms. Sometimes it can pretend to be a friend. How
mhm.
to recognize if it's a self sabotage or if it's an intuition?
Wow, that's a beautiful question.
Mm.
Beautiful question. Um, for me, I always go back to something that I've heard over and over and over again by many, many of the wise teachers that are on the planet now and already gone. And that is our emotions are our guidance system, our
Yes.
feelings. So I initially, when I hear that question, my first intuition is to say, how do you feel about it? So often, um, you know, there's and that's a very fine line as well because we do have that inner critic. All of us have it, that voice of doubt, and that can so often cover up our intuition. But how do I really feel? And so I think for a lot of us, I've been down this path when we shut our emotions off, and we only allow ourselves to feel if the emotion is sort of that deep, we're only feeling the top layer, and rationalizing everything. That can be a challenge at first. So it's about starting to play with feelings. How do I feel? And at the end of the day, the more we befriend ourselves, the more we get to know ourselves, the more we get to discern the difference between self sabotage and intuition. Because sometimes we do have intuition to make some hard calls, to bring things to an end. And and here's the other thing, and this is going to sound maybe a bit of a confused message, but I really also believe this. Sometimes we self sabotage because we need to, because further down the line, we wouldn't be able to grow the way into our fullest self without having done that. So if it feels like intuition and you follow that, and later on you go, maybe that was a bit of self sabotage, that's okay. That's okay because you're seeing it. Whenever you see it, you've seen it. And so that's what makes it okay. Because in the name of growth, the name of expanding, the name of becoming better versions of ourselves with each day, it's okay. We do make mistakes. We all make mistakes. So yeah. But
But that's
definitely
beautiful. I think Diana, it's very, very good answer, and thank you, Magda, for this amazing question because I think many people were wondering to themselves exactly the same thing. And here, I just would like to add this that very often when we receive a message and we think, "Oh, is it me trying to self sabotage myself, or is the intuition?" And what's interesting, at least I'll speak from my own experience. Whenever I receive an intuitive message, it's never really meant to soothe you or to make you feel comfortable, right? Sometimes it's about, oh, it's good to have a nap now. And you have a nap and you have message coming up or something just gets resolved because you had rest, right? But very often intuitive messages are very stretchy.
Mm,
For example, for me it was like last year in December, pack the house and go travel. What do you
mm,
mean pack the house and go travel? Or call to this person. I don't even know this person. It's like sometimes you receive these messages which are, there's no logic,
yeah.
there's no pattern, and they just come to you. And that is intuitive message. But when
Mm,
the self sabotage comes in, what I noticed, it's all about running away. For
absolutely.
example, I'll
Hmm.
sleep longer this morning. That's not intuition. That's you being lazy, right? That's
Yeah.
you
Or, yeah.
self-sabotaging your morning. right?
Yeah.
So it's literally what, at least what I found for myself, right? It's literally listening to the feeling. And if it is stretching and it is a good stretch, that's definitely intuition. But
Mm.
if it is like, as you said, a feeling is a very, very like, oh yeah, I just will sit here and I will be feeling
Yeah.
lazy and sleep and I lie down on the sofa or rather go and work out. That's not intuition.
Mm.
That's not.
Absolutely. Mm. And Olga, I
Mm.
think you've hit on something so important here, because, and I think we've chatted about this before, but there's such a mixed messaging about self-love, and
Mm.
often what is being presented is more about allowing and avoiding and resting in those low energy feelings, rather, and that's being packaged as self-love,
Mm-hmm.
and what that is often laziness. Quite frankly, yeah, that's what it is. Whereas you mentioned stretchy, and that's another way to sense. Is like, I love the example of staying in bed longer, because there's that moment where you know what you need to do, you know what's right for you, and that feeling is very clear. The feeling that is almost on top of it, sometimes it's so close, is the resistance, the hmm, stay a little bit longer. It's comfortable, and that is our inner critic masquerading as a carer. It's like masquerading as the self-love voice. Come on, do that. And yet we know the result when we do that. The result is not the result we want at all. So for me, I think self-love, and it's like that parent-child or that best friend. There is definitely a space for gentleness. There's a space for allowing. There's a space for acceptance. That's all very, very important. However, not to be missed is the self-discipline, the truth. And, there's the saying, and I think, I don't know where it comes from, but I think it comes from spiritual writings, maybe the Bible, about the truth being a sword. It's so sharp. It is from the Bible. And that is the case. So sometimes that stretch, it's about cutting through that resistance, cutting through that laziness, cutting through that self pity, and stretching yourself beyond. So yes, feeling the feelings, but feeling, also discerning which is the true feeling, which is the true push, which is the real intuition, and which is the self sabotage. Because that inner critic is, yeah, so clever. Mhm. Because that voice will say, stay in bed longer. And that same inner critic, 2 hours later, will be like, you should have gone home.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wow, that's how we keep ourselves in a sabotage cycle. Yeah.
I know. And it's so tricky to notice that because it's so well camouflaged,
Mm.
right? That's what we cannot really tell. Are we self sabotaging ourselves, or is it just life not being fair to us? It's just
Yeah.
other people. It's them, not me. I'm
Mm.
fine, but it's other people who are ruining my life, right?
Yeah.
So, Diana, in that case, the question is, and I'm sure many people are wondering about this as well, how do we stop it? I know it is about through self love, I know it's about through self care, but what
Yeah.
were the actionable steps? Like you said, you already mentioned being curious, asking yourself questions,
Yes.
right? But if you will put it like a number one, number two, number three, how would you prioritize the most important steps? How we all can actually stop self sabotaging ourselves?
Okay. So that first one that I mentioned, Olga, is be your own best friend. So that encapsulates a whole lot of stuff. That entails love, commitment, curiosity, all of that stuff. And I think from there come the steps. So steps like start to notice. So just notice, no pressure. Just start to pay attention. Like, when what am I doing when I feel like I'm being sabotaged? Because so often we'll rather feel the victim version of sabotage than say self-sabotage. But so what am I doing when? So watch our behavior, watch ourselves, start paying attention. Definitely the journaling, as I mentioned. So step two would be then to actually make note of what you start to notice, because none of us are, well, some of us are, Einstein was a genius. There are geniuses around, but it helps to have something that you can reference back and go back and go, hang on, didn't I notice that last week as well? And
Mm.
if you've journaled and you've asked yourself a question and come up with some answers, you can see those patterns. So definitely the habit of journaling, and I love the word habit because it just implies that it's part of
Mhm.
your life, part of your everyday life, um, is so powerful. A third step there is a word that we hear over and over and over again, much like self-love. We hear mindfulness,
Yeah.
um, and and this will really help with noticing behaviors as well. Is when we practice mindfulness and really be present in every moment,
Mm.
it's so much easier to see this stuff. Um, be warned, it comes with a warning, as you said already. When you see it, immediately you want to deny it or dismiss it or reject it and pretend that it's not there. But when we keep that, and again, that's a practice. So it's about choosing to be present in everything. Do one thing at a time. You and I have been chatting about that this week. Doing one thing at a time. When you eat your meal, just eat your meal. And
Yes.
in this life, we've become so busy. We're always trying to multitask. And human beings are really not created to multitask. We're not designed that way. So starting to practice that mindfulness in conjunction with the journaling and the noticing behaviors, that starts becoming a very, very powerful combination. Um, and then just to add to that, it's also self recognition. So when you
Mm.
do notice something, notice that you noticed it. So it's
Yes.
like, ah, I'm not blind to that anymore. I noticed that. So you actually reminding yourself that you are waking up a bit more than you might have been before, and you're acknowledging that. You're saying, well done, me. I'm doing this. Um, and then you can start, obviously, a very, very important thing is to start just making little changes. So just like the mindfulness itself, those are small changes already. And then from there, you'll you'll start figuring out what other small changes can be made. Um, like try something new, and that comes back to the curiosity again as well. So if it's a relationship challenge that you've spotted, I mean, recently I'm going to share something. I'm going to be very vulnerable here
Oh,
in
go
public,
ahead, of
on a
course.
public forum. I recently noticed that I was being very, very um, particular would be the word that I would choose. I've since picked up a new word in the training that we're doing called stickler. But yeah, I was being very, very particular with my hubby Cornelius and his son Leo. We all live together, and I was being very much like this is how it should be done, bordering on OCD. And I've always made jokes about obsessive compulsive, and I say it's not a disorder, it's an order. Like I've made a joke of it, being aware that I like things to be done a certain way. But I started noticing that I couldn't make a joke of it anymore. Lately, it was literally in the month of January where it came to a head, and that was hard. I didn't want to see it, and my feelings were a giveaway. So I would notice it, and immediately I would get angry. So that negative emotion showed me there's something to see here. There's something to pay attention to. So I started writing it down in my journal. I started asking the questions. I started wondering, and a very key question is, what do I need where that behavior makes me feel better or safer in the world? So what is it that I'm really looking for? What I've since unpacked is that I was being very, very hard on myself. And so I was expressing that in my home to the people closest to me. And the two of them, I mean, yeah, if I just think of some of the situations, I was being horrible. But I was so justified because, it was all good stuff. It was like, just live decently, be decent human beings. So it was all in the name of good stuff. But when I asked the question and and I checked in with how I really felt when I was doing that, and I wondered, what is it that I need? I started to unpack that the common denominator was me, the negative behavior was me, and the impact on the relationships was coming from this behavior, from my behavior. So that empowered me to then stop that behavior. And then I mentioned the training that you and I are doing, and of course that just was all in there as well. And I was like, oh wow. That is another thing. Watch for synchronicities, because life is always meeting us where we're at.
Yes.
And so we might be able to avoid something within ourselves, and then suddenly there's something else in our life, a person, a situation, in this case, a training, a whole training thing that we're doing, course, that's telling you the same thing. It's like, oh, I can't just ignore that. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hope those points helped.
Oh,
Um,
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I can see that Tanya very, very kindly shared in the chat. She was probably making notes as you were speaking. So she
oh,
shared it for us.
wonderful.
So anybody who is listening right now to us on LinkedIn, particularly, you will see that Tanya very kindly wrote exactly what Diana was sharing. So thank you, Tanya. We really
Thanks,
appreciate you.
Diane.
That's very nice of you. Yes,
Thank
but
you.
I agree with you. You know, the point is, very often we think we wish the best to people who are next to us, and we really want to help them to be better human beings because we know how to be better human beings.
Yeah,
Such a lie. Such a lie. And what we
absolutely.
do, we damage. We damage our children, we damage our partners, we damage ourselves,
Yeah,
right? And this is a
absolutely.
big, big damage, really big damage. I think we can pick up the last question before we finish off, just not to
Great.
keep the show too long, but we have a beautiful question from Magda. Are you ready, Diana? Because this is a
Oh,
really beautiful question. So Magda is asking, and she's asking on YouTube, just in case if people cannot see it on LinkedIn or Facebook. Magda says this: how can we help our kids in this matter to make them aware of self-sabotage and to help them to stop doing it?
ah,
Whew. Whew.
beautiful. So that
Mm-hmm.
actually it ties into something that I wanted to say as a final point on the list of things to do. And this question ties in perfectly. So I'm going to start with the point that I was going to make is have an accountability partner. And it doesn't have to be the same person for everything, but it really helps if you have people in your life who know you well. Like, for example, when I unpacked my horrible OCD behavior and I was trying to tell everyone to live the way in my home, I shared that with my husband. It was scary. I didn't want him to know. But now that he knows, it it's like and we've spoken of this before as well, it's like when there's a wound and the wound is going septic. What you need to do is go in there and open it up. Seems it seems counterintuitive, but you have to open it up in order for it to then close properly. So I had to open myself up to my husband and show him that horrible septic behavior, and then he could help me in those moments when I can't see it. And this, I think, is key in raising our children, is being honest about who we are. And there is such power in that. And I don't mean overexposing young minds to stuff that they're not ready for, but certainly showing up and being vulnerable so that our children get to see us as human beings and they get to see us as human beings overcoming. So with my daughter, I learned this a little bit later on in her life, but I managed to, I think, share a lot of it with her, where I would say, "This is an area that I'm struggling with," and then we would be able to celebrate when I got it right, and that gave her the space to see that she will also have struggles. She, if I was pretending to be perfect and telling her she must do this and she must do that and she must get it right and I've got it all together as your mom and I'm the voice of command because I'm your mother, and I've got it all right and I'm perfect. What does that do to her when she's struggling? It would have told her that she's not good enough or that she's getting it wrong. And it is natural as parents. We want to appear like we're holding it all together for our children because we don't want them to be afraid. However, there's a way of saying, I am human. I do also have my own struggles. That's still okay. We're still safe. I'm still your mom. I'm still your protector, even though I might be struggling with some things myself. And obviously, it's age appropriate information, like what I shared with my husband about my struggle a week or two ago. I wouldn't share that level if I had a 10-year-old child. It wouldn't be the same level, but there would be a sense of mom Mom also faces struggles and she overcomes them. And then sharing that with the child is so empowering. because they get to then take on that power themselves. Yeah. And I think taking the judgment away is a huge thing. So
Yeah.
when we speak to our children, it's not coming from that sort of high up on the pedestal position. It's saying, my baby, this is what I've seen you doing.
Mm.
How's that working for you? So it can be an example of maybe a child is really messy and it's affecting how they get to do their homework because they're leaving their place in a mess, their bed's unmade, their clothes on the floor, and they're not, and it's sitting down and saying, how does that work for you? How do you feel when you come home to your bedroom and there's no space for you?
Mm.
And maybe, I mean, my daughter loved having a mess. She loved it. I had to then understand that that was not her problem, it was mine. So we then had to deal that her mess was her mess. However, she used to have a clean space to do her homework in. So it was just that honest conversation. And she would be like, I love my clothes all over the place. And she would love tidying them up and then messing it up again. Like she would literally pull clothes out of her cupboard and now I'm not wearing this and throw it over her shoulder. That worked for her.
Yeah.
And I had to let that happen. But it did give her space to think about how is this working for me? Okay. So then she got to know herself a little bit better. So I think with our children it's supporting them in the journey to know themselves by showing up as our vulnerable self in an age appropriate way. Yeah.
That's very interesting what you shared there, Diana, because what I'm hearing from you is showing example,
Mm.
literally leading by example of being honest and vulnerable with our children will
Mm.
help them to grow up, will help them to become better human beings, right?
I do
Showing
believe that.
them this is what I struggle with will put them at the same place with you. You will
Mm-hmm.
be not on a pedestal, that perfect parent, because we all are perfect parents for all children, right? We all are, right? And of
Yeah.
course, their issues are always huge issues, and they feel like they are the only ones with those issues because
Mm-hmm.
we are so perfect parents. But when we drop from the pedestal right in front of them and we are at the same eye level, at the same length, whatever you want to call it, then they see us as, oh, you also have an issue.
Yeah.
Okay, you dealt with that this way. Maybe I can deal with that similar way.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful answer. Thank you so much, Diana. And Magda, thank you so much for this question because
Another
I
great
can see,
question. Yeah.
yeah, really great question. I can see even Tanya, she had goosebumps when Magda actually asked this question, which is always a good sign,
Yeah,
which is
it
always
is.
a good sign.
It is.
Yeah, but that was beautiful. And I think that tip number 5, in addition to 4 previous ones, which Diana said before, is have accountability partner. Somebody
Mm.
who actually will help you to
Yeah.
notice, to pay attention, to,
Yeah.
to discover how exactly do you self-sabotage yourself. And by the way, Tanya beautifully says, thank you very much for that beautiful advice. Thank you, Tanya. That's very
Wow.
nice comment. And parenting is such a beautiful experience.
Oh,
She
it
adds
really is.
that later.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really, really is, yeah. And I think a very important thing that I just want to quickly add about the parenting thing,
Yeah.
because it is such a beautiful experience and such an important one, is to be very aware of projection. It is so easy for us to remember ourselves at that age, and we're so desperate to protect our children that we push onto them what something we might have experienced, and we push onto them that we don't want them to have that experience. So I think it's remembering that they do need to have their own experiences. And sometimes we'll give them advice and they will not want it. And that's okay. That's okay. So yeah, I think that's also important to remember that they
Yeah.
do have their own journey.
100%. And there's something what my astrologist told me a long time ago. She said, remember that children have very, very highly connected intuition.
Yeah, yeah,
They are
absolutely.
more connected than we are. So
Mm-hmm.
when we allow them to follow their intuition, they are on the right path. But when we
Absolutely.
block them, when we refuse them, when we don't allow them to do what they want to do, then we
Mm.
close them. And then
Yes,
they will have to spend decades and decades realigning themselves and getting
yes.
in touch with themselves, reconnecting with themselves. And
Mm.
one day they will just blame us for not letting them to live their own journey. So let's just let them be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what you've just said, what I've heard you saying is give them a voice. So
Yeah.
give them their own voice in the space
Mm.
of raising them and caring for them. Absolutely. Yeah.
Powerful, very
Mm.
powerful. Well, I think on this note will be really powerful to finish off. And I have a little proposal
Thank
for you, Diana.
Oh,
How do
yes.
you feel? How do you feel? And I wonder if that will relate to many other people who are listening to us right now. Please do let us know if you would like this topic. But I would like to invite Diana for us to speak next time when we have
Mm.
our first session of the month in March on self
Yeah.
love and parenting.
Well, I love that. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah,
There's definitely alignment there because I was thinking, oh, this
definitely.
is a fabulous topic.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
because as a parent, I think we so much are into looking and loving our children that we forget about ourselves and we put ourselves not only second place. We are after work, partner, children,
Yeah.
mothers. We are on the latest place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we're so
Absolutely.
exhausted and tired. So I
Yeah.
think bringing up the topic of self love and parenting will be
Wonderful.
quite powerful. So we would love to hear what you think. Oh, yes, Magda says yes,
Yay.
which is good. Yes, yes. So please do drop us some questions. Please
Mm.
drop us some
Yeah.
worries which you have. Please drop us some situations which we'll have because we will love to. We will absolutely love to bring them back next time when we are at the show. And don't forget, our show is always on the first Wednesday of the month. So we
Yep.
will see you next month.
See you next time.
Thank you very much for watching us. Please let us know where you are watching us from today. Share your location and share this video with somebody that you think it may help them. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next month. Take care. And Diana, big kisses to you and big hugs to you for you coming to the show again and sharing your incredible value. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Olga. It's just a blessing to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.